purpose. These poor sales guys were lost inside of a huge company of Siemens. They witnessed they were selling certain service portfolio items that were directly competitive with other Siemens sales organizations, and they didn't know how to handle that. Also, Siemens is a very financially driven company, and they were scrutinizing all of their proposals, all of their orders, and they weren't comfortable with people looking through their quotes before they would send them to customers. So they were very frustrated with let's say, the time and review process that Siemens liked to do on their proposals. And really, they were just getting beaten down by this constantly different Siemens people coming in, telling them that they weren't performing very well. Second, an emphasis on short-term profits. Siemens is definitely a very financially driven company, and by the time they were in their 5th year and I walked in, they were on a month-to-month review cycle of constantly declining performance. In fact, the day I accepted the position, the CEO saw the numbers, that monthly figures, and immediately said, no more investing in this company. And I was told that the position I received was no longer funded. So I spent the next 24 hours meeting with the CEO, convincing him that they needed to continue to try to save this company and that we could turn it around. I really didn't know at the time if I was going to be able to do that, but that gives you an idea of the kind of atmosphere that I inherited literally the first day I started with this business. And mobility of management. You know, Dr. Deming warns us, don't bring in a manager that isn't from the business. They'll be viewed as a prima donna. They'll be viewed as somebody who's only interested in a quick fix. So I was that guy. So when I took over to run this sales organization, I was one of the deadly diseases that I had to be aware of in starting out trying to fix this. So if we go to the next slide, I looked at some data at the time to really understand how bad was it, what was really happening. And I don't know if you can see this very well in the back, but this is a very typical sales pipeline evaluation process. Here on the left was a pipeline of opportunities that this service organization was generating. This was all the opportunities they were quoting out in the marketplace. It could either be a 30-day pipeline, it could be a 60-day pipeline. You pick the timeline, it had this relative picture. So there are all these opportunities that they were generating. The forecast is really just a subset of the pipeline. What of the opportunities they really think they can close in that period of time? So it's a smaller set of those opportunities. And that's compared directly to the goal at the time. And this was the goal that Siemens was giving them. This was a goal that they were either forced to accept or that they thought they could meet. Either way, this was the goal that they were asked to deliver. So right away when you see this, you can recognize we really were in trouble. Even if they closed everything in their pipeline, they weren't coming anywhere near their target. So that's when I said, okay, we need to introduce some sort of PDSA process. Put down the hammer. Let's quit beating these people about missing their target, because it's pretty clear they're going to miss the target. So let's quit focusing on trying to meet that goal, and let's do a shift. Let's talk about how we can actually just come up with ideas to grow the pipeline. Let's just figure out ways that we can increase the pipeline of opportunities. It sounds logical, but it wasn't the way they were thinking at the time. All they were thinking was, we need to be able to close as many of these things as we can, and that was just not working because there wasn't enough to start with. So if you click one more, Purvi, we addressed these in a series of 2-day workshops. Every month we took key sales leaders and we said, look, don't worry about getting yelled at. I'll take the heat for not performing. Let's take some time and really figure out what matters. How can we remove the barriers and figure out ways to grow the pipeline? You guys know the business. I know a little bit about Siemens. Let's figure out ways to grow. And immediately, we identified some great ideas, but it took some time to address. We initially came up with ways to reduce the internal competition. We created cross incentives, so the sales guys weren't competing with each other anymore. They were no longer in conflict with each other. The service team stopped selling things that were directly competitive to other teams. Some logical things, but they weren't getting the support, they weren't getting the understanding of how to fix those inside of Siemens.
Were the salespeople commissioned salespeople?
Yes, there was a salary plus an incentive plan, yes, on all the salespeople. The financial training for the employees, we gave them training with why is it important that Siemens keeps scrutinizing all of their proposals and their orders? Why are they doing that? And what's the value in it? And through education, we taught them ways to get their proposals and their projects approved more quickly by dealing with the facts that were most important to Siemens. And we eliminated a little bit of the confusion there, which helped them in getting things done a little bit faster. And most importantly, we created value-added service offerings for the other sales teams. Instead of competing with them, we created different service offerings that were complementary to the other sales forces. So pretty soon, everybody started working together, and the momentum really started building. And through these series of workshops over 6 months, what we eventually did was we created a constancy of purpose within NSD that they didn't have before. Their system had to be a little bit redefined, and we did that with a little bit of an understanding how to work inside of this huge company, and we created great momentum. So if you go to the next slide, 1 year later, this pipeline review looks a lot different. Now there's a lot of bright, pretty colors, and it's a lot bigger. The colors indicated the service offerings that the employees created to sell complementary to the other sales teams. So they wanted to see the value of what they created. How was that contributing to the overall pipeline? The forecast is a little bit bigger. They're forecasting more. Now you see this gold now has 2 colors, and this is my favorite part. You see it appears that perhaps they're still not reaching their goal, but the solid green color on the lower portion of this bar here, that's the goal that Siemens was asking for. That's the goal that Siemens was asking this service organization to deliver, and the employees were signing up to commit to that number. That's what they agreed to. But we came back from that, let's say, target meeting and said, we want to set a goal in order for us to maximize our incentive. Let's set a goal that's even farther away, because we had built so much momentum. They enjoy blowing away the number that Siemens wanted, and now they're enjoying a lot more return on their investment as an employee. We're still inside of a system that requires a sales incentive plan, a performance management structure. There are certain parts of the system we weren't able to take away, but now they're in control because they've figured out ways to maximize the pipeline, maximize their forecast, and everybody was much higher in terms of their performance to plan and their incentive payout. So we created a lot of momentum, and this went from an organization where people didn't want to work here. People were leaving in droves, looking for other jobs. Here is where people were asking us if there were any openings within this service organization. So we turned things around and built a sustaining model. After this, years after, they're also tracking the size of their pipeline, not just the performance to target. So try to make sure they keep their pipeline as high as they possibly can. So that one is the National Service Division. That was a lot of fun. That was some of the people that we did that with were still my closest friends in working through the recovery period for that time. So the next example is a mechanical engineered products business. This is a new business that was acquired, and I was asked to be involved in integrating this company to Siemens 6 years later, after the service opportunity was complete. And the engineered products business also had some growing pains in getting acclimated to Siemens. Now this one has a little bit of a different approach. The sales and marketing side was pretty solid. The customers liked the products, but they didn't know when they were going to get them. So this was a delivery reliability issue with this engineered products division. So if you click on the next slide, the lack of constancy of purpose was there because these products were very complex. They would take 36 weeks to build, and the customers would get them in 46 weeks or 50 weeks. So they never knew when they were going to get them, and we had very low customer satisfaction, we had very low delivery reliability, and very few customers were staying with us at the time. Mobility of management was me again. Now I'm introduced to a new business who was acquired by Siemens. Again, there were questions of, does he really know our business? How is he going to help us? And I had to be aware of that again in this round. So if we go to the next slide, the delivery reliability was hovering around 47% when I started. And we introduced the workshop concept again, and I call it a workshop within Siemens, but it's really our PDSA, let's say, methodology within Deming. And I introduced the workshop, brought in product managers, engineers, the plant manager, operations manager, the people, procurement, people who really had a responsibility on delivery reliability, including sales. We also introduced voice of the customer in this, let's say, PDSA workshop, and we brought customers in who used to buy from us. And these people didn't really have a lot of connection with customers, but they heard firsthand how much these customers valued the products that we made, but they just had to go somewhere else because they never knew when they were going to get them. So the group not only saw the customer, but they came together to realize where perhaps they could improve. So it started the process of them understanding there was a bigger picture out there. So if you go to the next slide, we did a lot of process flow charts. Now I know this is an eye chart. I don't expect you to see it, but we put the roles and responsibilities for a lot of different functions up on the top. Product manager, master production scheduler, general manager, controller, this one says buyer. And they started to understand the role they played and how it depended on other people. And this was a key learning for them. We did several process flow charts for this group. Although they saw each other every day, they really didn't care, nor did they know how their decisions impacted other people. So this was a key aspect of trying to get this group together. And then the next slide. In summary of this one, we did a lot on data management, order management, master production scheduling, and order processing. Essentially, we came up with ways for the data for the part numbers to be entered more effectively in our SAP system. That was a major block. The people that were struggling with that weren't telling anyone else the struggles they were having. And order management, they were in charge of making sure the orders were clean and effective. And what we did with order managers, we brought sales in, and we looked at the orders before they became orders. We looked at high potential quotes, and we identified problems in the quotes before they became orders. We called that the factory review process. But all these ideas, all these actions came from them. They didn't come from me. We just created the environment for them to work. We created an environment that said, well, you won't be in trouble for missing another deadline. We've missed so many before. Here's an environment in our workshop that gives you an idea, gives you an opportunity to get your ideas out there, take them for a run around the block. Let's see how they work. It's a safe environment to try things. And they came up with these. And we drove them. We came up with easy to understand tools. It didn't happen right away, as you see. It took 2 years, 3 years to come up out of the trouble we were in. But overall, it went from 47% in year 1 to 88% in year 3. And now it stays well above 90 to this day because they're all there. They're all continuing to do this. Although they don't know it, they were introduced to Deming philosophy, and they're continually running PDSA workshops, but they've never heard of Deming. So those are just a few of the successes. If we go to the next slide, really, in conclusion, the basic Deming philosophy of creating a constancy of purpose toward continual improvement of product and service with a plan to become competitive and stay in business. You know, Dr. Deming had a speech in 1992 at Ford Motor Company, and he said, leadership is when you create the environment for this to happen. And that's stuck with me in terms of not necessarily creating all the ideas myself, but creating the environment for the employees who really understand the business to come up with ways to fix it. So within an environment like Siemens, where we don't have everything Deming, this actually gives the teams a lot of power to survive in a world of annual performance reviews and financial metrics, such as the incentive plan. So thank you very much, and I'll take any questions.
You changed your opinion on mobility of management since you made this work? You were new?
No, I don't. I still wouldn't change my opinion about mobility of management. I'm in healthcare today, and hopefully at the next research seminar I can talk about successes in healthcare. But I think the merits of being from a business still hold true. And perhaps I'm in a unique situation because I can help these businesses with how Siemens works. And sometimes when they come into Siemens, that's their biggest challenge. But I think it's important to have a very deep understanding of a business. The only thing sometimes that can happen is someone from a business who's trying to adopt a Deming philosophy can sometimes be hampered by, we've done that, we've tried that already. Sometimes if you know a business so well, you can be sometimes your own worst enemy in talking yourself out of exploring a new idea. But I think overall, though, the value of being someone from a business is still very high.
Thank you very much. Is Siemens, besides hardware, healthcare, are they getting into software, healthcare software?
Siemens does have several different products within the software realm. Depends on where. We have middleware products. We're in lab diagnostics and infrared, X-ray diagnostics, and so we do have middleware and software to enter into a lab information system. So we have several different software packages. We have PLM software on the industry side. So there's several different divisions of Siemens that are heavily invested in software.
So once people have met their goal, Siemens, you showed a chart, where the goal was lower and then they exceeded that goal by a huge amount. How do they manage that for the next year when Siemens bumps the quota?
No, it's a great question. And I have a whole strategy about doing that, which could be a whole nother session. But the budget setting happens in May, and the next year is in October. So you have to strategically show your long-term plan for the organization. And you have to have a very detailed grasp of your long-term plan and your success, because they will ask for more. You have to be able to explain how much more you really can achieve. Once you're on the upper end of the curve looking down, it's a little easier to negotiate, and it's also a little easier to anticipate where the market is going and what you can do, because you have a lot more awareness now because your team is engaged in it. So it doesn't completely eliminate the knee-jerk reaction of a quota, but you're much more educated in defending your next year's plan halfway through the year when they ask about it, and that always helps. If you have no idea how you achieve these high numbers and they want to give you a higher number, then you would be in a difficult situation. But knowledge is power in that case.
Stephen, so I relate to a lot of what you were saying because I work for also a big corporation, United Technologies Corporation, and
Yes, that's a great. Okay, it's okay. I guess last question then. That is absolutely the why the managers with Siemens have the most important role, because you have to use practices like Deming in order to help people manage their performance management throughout the year. It's up to the employee to figure out ways to drive their performance management that they're kind of stuck with in coming up with a very proactive and positive way to drive that for their manager, because most of the time the managers won't do it. So there's a very good, effective way to use Deming as sort of a, not a shield, but as an offensive weapon to help an employee get through that otherwise negative experience. That's the best way I've been able to help people through it, is for them to have a very proactive plan. Otherwise, you can't always rely on your manager to really see your true value. Okay? Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being here.